Hey, shalom to the hopeful elect. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone who teach the truth and rule well. This is the brother Yatab Yahweh Allah coming back from the GMS SF Bay Area camp. And I got a quick lesson today. All right, Lord's will is edifying. But just going into the topic of, focusing on what is important for salvation. All right, we had a bug out that came to the camp last week, and he asked the question, wanting to know who the first human was created on earth. And we told him about the first spirit created, which was Yahweh Shai. All right, but he wanted to know the exact first human, which we told him, really it don't matter, but we told him, we don't know. All right, and that's not what's important right now. And really, again, what's important is the things for salvation. Now, let me start with this. This is 1 Corinthians 13:9. It says, "For we know in part and we prophesy in part." We're not going to know exactly every single detail, all right, like that dude was asking, who the first human, what was the first elephant created? What was the first dog ever? We don't, that's not something that we need to focus on right now. Now, in the kingdom, will we get all that knowledge? Of course. When Yahweh Shai comes back, he establishes everything. Yeah, if you want to know that, I'm sure it'll be available. All right, but as of right now, that's things that just don't matter. All right, it says, "For we know in part and we prophesy in part." And again, too, like we prophesy the kingdom to come. Do we know exactly how it's going to look? All right, brothers have a vivid imagination. All right, but the scriptures say, eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, the glory which is going to be revealed. We prophesy in part. All right, when we actually get there, we'll fully see exactly how it's going to be. All right, but right now, we can just go into what the scriptures say, and then ultimately focusing on our relationship with Yahweh Bashim Shai and what we got to do. All right, verse 10, it says, "But that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away." All right, now ultimately, again, we'll be perfected when Yahweh Shai returns and saves us. Lord's will be of that number. But in the kingdom, all right, in the kingdom we'll be perfected. We'll know all these things. You want to know the first human, the records will be there. All right, you want to know the first dog, you want to know exactly how the kingdom is going to look. Whatever questions that can't be answered on this side, all right, of course they'll be answered in the kingdom. All right, now from there I wanted to jump to the Apocrypha, because again, our focus is on salvation. All right, our focus is on the scriptures, working on our relationship, working on our faith, praying to the Lord for more faith. All right, make sure we're doing the work. If we are given the ability to believe, well then, are you pushing that out to the elect? All right, are you edifying? Are you exhorting? These are the things important for salvation, faith and works. But this is Sirach chapter 3, verse 21. And it says, "Seek not out the things that are too hard for thee, neither search the things that are above thy strength." And that goes for everything. If there's certain questions that that'll bug you out or just above your pay grade, so to speak, hey, focus on what you know. All right, focus on what the Lord has given you. All right, hey, we're not going to know what the apostles and elders know. All right, if you're in that position, all right, you want to be in that position, you got to understand that the Lord, he deals with order. All right, and he gives to his men accordingly. Now, if you don't have that, well, it is what it is. Focus on what you do have. Be thankful for what you do have. All right, you got the names, right? You have this knowledge. You have the faith. Focus on that. All right. It says, "Seek not out the things that are too hard for thee, neither search the things which are above thy strength. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret." Yeah, it may not just be needful for you to understand everything. All right, and to go back to that dude's questions, it's not needful for us to understand who the first human on earth was created. That has nothing to do with salvation. maybe a cool little fact, to understand or to know, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help us with what's going on. And, when we were out there in camp, we brought out the scriptures in Sirach. Well, let me just get it real quick. Also in this book in 39, really what we're focused on. All right, Sirach 39:1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof. So if you're really, focused on the scriptures, you're focused on the Lord, all right, and you're thinking upon it, what's it going to do? It says it will seek out all the wisdom of the ancient, all right, a wisdom. And these scriptures are contain many wisdom, all right, or the wisdom, I should say, needful on how to move and how to walk, especially in this wicked place, especially being at the end. All right. It says we'll seek out the wisdom of the ancient and be occupied in prophecy. That's the most important thing, occupied in prophecy, because, that tells us where we're at. All right. That tells us, what's going on. Esau getting ready to make his move. Is the MOTB here? All right. Jacob's trouble. All right. World War III. You get to measuring the times, you're seeing where prophecy's at. That lets us know where we're at in the timeline of things, so to speak. All right. Then that also helps you build your faith. Okay. Now let me jump back. Sirach 3:21, and it says, verse 22. It says, "But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence." All right. Now, we think upon prophecy with reverence. All right. And the wisdom. Okay. "For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters. For more things are showed unto thee than men understand." And again, some things are just unnecessary. All right. Some things are just unnecessary to know, to focus on, because again, it really has nothing to do with salvation. All right. Not to say we won't know these things in the kingdom. All right. But right now, it's not important. It says, "Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men understand." Yeah. And this is, the little things we've been given, and it's not even little. You can't even say that. Just the things we've been given, going into the name of the Lord and his son, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. All right. That's big. Being able to pray. Being able to understand, what's going on, being able to understand prophecy, and see, everything that's being done in the world, geopolitically, internationally, all right, financially, and able to match that to the scriptures. That's high level. All right. Being understanding that you're an Israelite, understanding the curses, the covenants, all that is high level knowledge. And, the majority of our people don't understand this. All right. It says, "For many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment." Yeah. And, when you start to think that you need to know all this unnecessary crap, well, then you get to be bugged out. All right. You start focusing on it too much, it'll bug you out. All right. Again, focus on what is given. Focus on, the truth and again, the things pertinent for salvation. All right. Let me grab this. Let me go back to the BLB. Yep. Let me 2 Timothy 3 and 14. All right. Now it talks about, when you read in 13, when you read up, especially in this book, it talks about, the evil men, the false prophets. All right. It shows you what they're focused on. All right. But what are we supposed to be focused on? Verse 14. "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them." All right. It says in the NLT, "But you must remain faithful to the things you have been taught. You know that they are true, for you can trust those who taught you." All right, we understand what the apostles and elders have been teaching. All right, we've been given things that are, again, necessary for salvation. All right, the apostles don't go into what the first human was created, all right, or the first elephant, dog, none of that matters. Okay, certain, historical events, all right, whether, when it's to understanding prophecy, But there's certain things that just aren't important. All right. It says, but continue thou in the things which thou hast learned, back in the KJV, and has been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child that has known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Hamashiach Yahushai. All right. And that's the point. You know, we focus on things that make us wise unto salvation. All right. And that's all contained in the scriptures. Okay. You know, we don't need any other book, even though sometimes, the book does back up and further support what the scripture is saying, but we don't need that. That's not necessary. You know, the scriptures alone are enough. All right. Now, what did it say? It says, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation. Because again, you know, we're in need of saving. When you go into the curses, all right, when you go into who's in control, all right, when you go into what's coming, the second death, we're in need of salvation. Now, how does that come? It says through faith, which is in Hamashiach Yahushai. All right, all through Yahushai, believing in Yahushai. All right, believing in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That's what's most important. All right, verse 16, all scripture is given by inspiration of the Most High and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of the Most High may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. And that's the main thing. All right, the faith and the works, okay, which brings me to this in 2nd Esdras, the 9th chapter. That's how we're getting out of here. All right, Lord's will we be of that number. That's how we're getting out. It says, and everyone shall be saved, and 2nd Esdras 9 and 7, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby you have believed, shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. All right. Now, again, the faith and works, that's our ticket out of here, really ultimately by predestination. Lord's will we be at that number. But, you know, the scriptures, you know, and the apostles, the elders, the men at Great Millstone going into how to maneuver in this world, you know, goes into your works. That's how we getting out of here. All right. And again, focusing on things that are unnecessary, that don't matter, that don't, you know, contribute to faith and works, then, hey, leave that at the door. All right. Cast it out. Don't focus on it. All right. But yeah, you know, just a quick lesson, you know, like I said, you know, you had that bug out that came into camp and asking questions that just are retarded, you know, you know, and he didn't get the answer he wanted. So he walked up, which is, you know, fine, because this ain't for him. But, you know, this is for this lesson is for the hopeful elect. All right. For those who, you know, maybe looking at things that don't matter, you know, just focus on the truth, focus on faith, focus on works. All right. Focus on the scriptures and all that other stuff. Hey, we'll find that out in the kingdom. All right. Hey, Lord's will this be edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect and Abba Baba.